Hey guys, tonight we're pulling back the velvet drapes of a candlelit era, a world of ticking clocks, creaking floorboards, and insomniacs in whalebone corsets sipping warm lettuce water by the glow of a gas lamp. Yep, you heard that right. Victorian England, the land of empire and invention, also had a not-so-glamorous bedtime routine. Imagine falling asleep to the soft rustle of lace curtains, with your veins quietly humming from a teaspoon of laudanum and your head nestled in a pillow stuffed with, believe it or not, hops. Spoiler, you probably won't survive this century's version of sleep hygiene. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. It's always fascinating to see who's dozing off in Tokyo, who's wide awake in Toronto, and who's just pretending to sleep in Tulsa. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in a small London drawing room. It smells like polished wood, dried lavender, and something vaguely bitter. It's the scent of tinctures and tonics, faint enough to hide behind the perfume of rosewater and chimney soot. You've just been handed a porcelain cup. It's lukewarm. Floating inside, a few limp leaves of butterhead lettuce steeped in hot water. The hostess insists this is how they do it. A Victorian remedy for restless nights. It's not exactly NyQuil, but hey, it won't kill you. Probably. Victorian England wasn't just all foggy streets and Jack the Ripper headlines. It was also a land of peculiar bedtime rituals. As urban life boomed, so did stress, and sleep became both a fascination and a business. Doctors, quacks, and nosy neighbors all had opinions. Should you sleep on your back or your side? Should your bed face east for better dreams? Should your mattress be stuffed with straw, feathers, or horsehair? These questions weren't idle, they were life strategies. And let's not forget the laudanum. A mix of alcohol and opium, it was sold over the counter and kept in most households like it was sugar or salt. A few drops and you were out cold. But wake up feeling foggy or, addicted? That part wasn't on the label. It was particularly popular with Victorian women, whose every complaint, from nerves to sleeplessness to hysteria, was often treated with either silence or syrup. Laudanum was both. Silent and syrupy. A win-win. Until it wasn't. You wander into a nursery next door, where a nanny is carefully wrapping a child in something called a sleeping stretcher, basically a miniature straitjacket for toddlers. The logic? Flailing limbs disturbed sleep, so better to immobilize the poor thing. This was the same era where kids were told scary bedtime stories not to soothe them, but to make them lie still. Go to sleep, or the chimney sweep will take you. Cozy, right? Meanwhile, in the parlor, your host is fiddling with something called a hypnotic air ventilator. It's basically a wooden frame that holds the window slightly ajar. Victorians believed stale indoor air caused nightmares, hysteria, or worse. Fresh night air, even in freezing winter, was considered essential. You might shiver yourself to sleep, but at least your lungs would be morally refreshed. Now, let's talk beds. You lower yourself onto a Victorian mattress and feel the uneven lumps of straw poking through. The pillow, stuffed with dried hops, smells a little like old ale. And yes, hops, the same ingredient used in brewing beer, were thought to have sedative effects. Whether it worked or not is still debated. Historians still argue whether this belief was based on real pharmacology or just good old-fashioned pub logic. Beer makes you sleepy, ergo hops must too. Some bedrooms were more elaborate. Wealthier homes had sleeping chambers with silk screens, urns of potpourri, and detailed bedtime routines that rival modern spa regimens. Foot baths, face oils, and scented gloves were common. You might don a quilted nightcap, not for fashion, but to conserve body heat and protect the brain from chills. If you were lucky, or unlucky enough, to own a fainting couch, it wasn't just decorative. Ladies who got overheated or anxious were encouraged to recline until their nerves settled, a euphemism for "please stop thinking so loudly." Oh, and candles. Nighttime lighting was a science all its own. Too much flicker and you risked a headache, too little, and your silhouette might summon ghosts. It's no wonder sleep seemed like a fragile art form rather than a basic human function. People feared bad sleep like it was a spiritual condition. Dreams were studied. Nightmares were blamed on indigestion or sin. There were even books written about how to dream properly, because apparently, you could do it wrong. You open one such book. Its leather spine creaks as you flip past illustrations of ideal sleep postures: back straight, arms at sides, no curling. Curling, it warned, could compress your inner organs. And don't even think about reading anything emotionally stimulating before bed. Gothic novels? Absolutely not. Too much emotion could excite the etheric body. Whatever that was. Among the strangest entries in the Victorian sleep manual, the idea that touching certain objects before bed could pollute the dreamscape. Mirrors, especially. You weren't supposed to sleep facing one. Victorians feared that mirrors could trap or reflect your soul as you slept, leading to unrestful dreams or even inviting spirits to join you in bed. So yes, if you're rearranging your room right now, better turn that IKEA mirror to the wall. You glance out the window. A lamplighter trudges by, lifting his pole to light the gas lanterns one by one. It's quiet now. The city's hustle has dimmed into a low murmur. Inside, the house is still, except for the rhythmic ticking of a mantel clock and the occasional pop of cooling pipes. You sip the last of the lettuce water. It's room temperature now and tastes like soggy salad. But strangely, it helps. Maybe it's not the drink. Maybe it's the ritual. The quiet intention of bedtime, of giving yourself over to rest. Or maybe it's just the laudanum kicking in. You wake, well, not exactly wake. More like hover, in a room you've never seen, but somehow remember. Velvet drapes, tall windows, and the scent of beeswax polish and old upholstery. This is a Victorian bedroom, and not just any bedroom. It's the kind where sleep is an achievement, an event, sometimes even a performance. Forget warm milk. Here, your bedside table holds a miniature electrical generator, a porcelain bottle labeled Dr. Thorpe's Nerve Repose Elixir, and a little silver bell to summon your sleep coach. Yes, that was a thing. Welcome to the golden age of insomnia, and the strange solutions it inspired. By the mid-19th century, insomnia wasn't just a personal complaint, it was becoming a public obsession. Medical journals devoted entire columns to the growing affliction of sleeplessness in industrial society. You weren't just tired, you were morally exhausted. The pace of life had accelerated, and the Victorians, forever caught between Romanticism and the Industrial Revolution, found themselves too stimulated to rest. Steam engines and telegrams had speeded up the world. But your nervous system? Not so much. And so, sleep entrepreneurs stepped in to profit from your misery. Let's start with electrotherapy. Picture it, you, reclining stiffly on a divan, a pair of damp sponges strapped to your temples, connected by wires to a humming contraption the size of a microwave. A respectable-looking man in a waistcoat assures you this gentle nerve current will calm your racing mind. You nod, partly out of hope, partly because the current makes your jaw twitch. Welcome to Victorian neurology. Devices like the pulvermarker chain were sold as miraculous nerve restorers. You'd wear it like a necklace or a belt if you had digestive sluggishness, and it would deliver a mild electric buzz. Did it work? Historians still argue whether patients genuinely felt better or were just distracted by the tingling sensation and the drama of it all. But let's say you were more into the metaphysical than the mechanical. Enter seances. Yes, for some Victorians, the cure for insomnia wasn't sedation, it was ghost talk. You'd join a circle of friends, clasp hands around a table, and summon Aunt Mildred for advice on how to sleep better. Spiritualism was huge, especially among women. Mediums claimed that restless spirits were often the cause of poor sleep, and that resolving unfinished business, like a forgotten will or a misfiled love letter, could grant you peaceful dreams. You can't help but chuckle at the idea of waking up at 3 a.m. because someone on the other side forgot to say goodbye. Then there were the patented sleep potions. Some of these were basically just rebranded alcohol, mixed with a few herbs and sold under names like Dr. Etheridge's Dream Tonic or Slumber Syrup. Others had ingredients we'd now raise a few eyebrows at: bromide salts, chloral hydrate, and even small doses of mercury. The labels always promised gentle rest and vivid dreams. The fine print, of course, said nothing about side effects like memory loss, tremors, or spontaneous poetic rambling. One lesser known but utterly delightful remedy? Sleep by suggestion. This involved reading aloud, monotonously, from very boring texts until the patient slipped into slumber. Imagine your best friend standing at your bedside, droning on about railroad tariffs from an 1842 trade report. Sounds dull? Perfect. That was the point. Some doctors even recommended reading one's own diary backward, slowly. It was believed that this rewinding of personal events could unwind the mind. Let's be honest, someone should turn that into a meditation app. Of course, if you were wealthy and truly desperate, you could hire a night nurse. Not the kind who gave you medicine, though some did, but rather someone who stayed beside you, adjusting your pillows, monitoring your breath, and offering occasional affirmations like "you're doing so well" or "the moon looks restful tonight." Think of it as a human ambient playlist. Just way more expensive. In less lavish homes, folks got creative. One popular folk remedy involved tucking a piece of cold, raw potato under your pillow. Supposedly, it absorbed hot thoughts. Another method? Rubbing a slice of onion on your feet. Why? Something about drawing the excess energy down. Or maybe it was just a good excuse to keep people out of your bed. There was also a brief craze involving sleep-inducing wallpapers. Yes, wallpapers. Certain pastel patterns, especially those with repeating symmetrical designs, were thought to lull the mind into a calm trance. If you're imagining a beige floral snoozefest, congrats, that's exactly what they were going for. Entire bedrooms were redecorated in accordance with hypnotic color theory, which, surprisingly, never made it to the modern paint aisle. But behind all this was a deeper fear. Sleeplessness wasn't just uncomfortable. It was dangerous. It signaled moral decline, spiritual unease, or, if you were a woman, something far worse. Nervous exhaustion was often diagnosed in women who reported insomnia, especially those who were unmarried, widowed, or just too curious for their own good. Enter the infamous rest cure. Think prolonged bed rest, near silence, and the removal of all reading, writing, or talking. You weren't allowed to get up, think hard, or even knit. You were, quite literally, confined to sleep. One woman, Charlotte Perkins Gilman, turned her experience with the rest cure into the short story The Yellow Wallpaper, which, spoiler alert, is less about recovery and more about descending into psychological chaos. And here's the thing, that story? Still used in medical humanities classes today to warn doctors against, well, doing exactly that. Back in your Victorian bedroom, you notice something odd. Every clock is muffled. The ticking is barely audible. That's not a coincidence. Loud clocks were said to disturb the sympathetic vibration of dreams. So inventors developed quiet tick mechanisms and even wool-lined clock housings to ensure the subconscious wasn't startled. Imagine designing a timepiece specifically to not tell you the time too harshly. And finally, no Victorian sleep ritual would be complete without an entry from your dream diary. You find it tucked under the pillow. The leather cover is worn, and the pages are filled with looping ink, dreamt of a garden shaped like a violin. Spoke to mother, though she's been gone 6 years. Climbed a staircase that dissolved into feathers. Dreams were more than dreams, they were omens, maps, and sometimes excuses for why you refused to see Cousin Edward ever again. You flip the book shut, breathe in the scent of dried lavender and ink, and stretch beneath the heavy bedspread. The ceiling above is carved with cherubs. They look tired too. And maybe, finally, just maybe, you're ready to sleep. It's late now. The kind of late where even the clocks seem reluctant to keep ticking. You stir beneath thick layers of woolen blankets, the edges neatly tucked with the precision of someone trained to fear drafts more than nightmares. Outside, the fog of Victorian London has settled like a sleeping cat over the cobblestone. Inside, your candle has long burned out, leaving only the hush of fabric, the scent of faded roses, and your own thoughts, the ones that start pacing when the rest of the house finally stops. You rise. Not because you want to, but because that old heaviness in your chest, anxiety, memory, indigestion, or maybe just too much cabbage at dinner, has whispered you awake. Barefoot, you pad across the creaky floorboards toward a narrow wardrobe. But instead of linens or slippers, you find something else. Morning clothes. Black veils. Satin gloves. A brooch made of woven hair. Welcome to the sleep habits of the bereaved Victorians, where grief didn't end at the grave, and sleep was no escape from sorrow. Victorian morning customs were among the most elaborate in history. Entire bedrooms were redecorated in black, curtains, upholstery, even bedsheets. Widows' chambers often featured photos of the deceased turned to face away at night, to let the living rest without feeling watched. But the mourning didn't stop at decor, it seeped into sleep rituals too. There were special lullabies for widows, talismans for dream protection, and even mourning pillows embroidered with death dates. And yes, people genuinely believed you could dream with the dead. One common belief held that the soul hovered close for several weeks after death, visiting loved ones through dreams. So, grieving Victorians often kept notebooks by their beds, hoping to transcribe ghostly visitations before morning scattered them. It was part comfort, part spiritual hotline. Some even trained themselves in lucid grief dreaming, a Victorian cousin of today's lucid dreaming, designed specifically to reconnect with lost ones in sleep. Historians still argue whether this was spiritual sincerity or subconscious wish fulfillment taken to its most dramatic conclusion. Either way, the dream became a place of reunion, and a trapdoor into a very peculiar kind of nighttime. Then there were the sleepwalkers. Victorians were simultaneously fascinated and horrified by somnambulism. To them, it wasn't just a neurological quirk, it was a sign that the boundary between conscious and unconscious had grown thin. Sleepwalkers were viewed with a mix of scientific curiosity and Gothic suspicion. Was the sleepwalker simply restless, or were they channeling spirits? Acting out repressed desires? Carrying messages from the beyond? In one sensational 1884 court case, a man claimed he committed theft in his sleep. The court acquitted him. Why? Because expert witnesses couldn't agree on whether sleepwalking was criminally conscious or as innocent as dreaming of soup. You can imagine how many people suddenly remembered their own nocturnal habits after that. And in a less legal, more domestic twist, families often tied bells to their sleepwalking children to be alerted when they began their midnight wanderings. One particularly inventive mother in Bath sewed tiny silver spoons into the hems of her son's nightgown. He didn't love it, but she claimed it saved him from tumbling down the cellar stairs. Honestly, fair trade. Now picture yourself back in the bedroom. The fire's embers glow faintly red, and the shape of the bed looms like a ship's hull in the dim light. You lie down again, this time on a morning pillow, the kind filled with myrtle and crushed rosemary, herbs said to ease sorrow and invite visions. Beside you is a small silver bell, once used to summon a servant, now there in case your dreams go wrong. You close your eyes and drift. But what if the dreams do go wrong? Victorian dream literature is full of misdreams, visions not sent by angels or lost loved ones, but by imps, by regrets, by things you weren't supposed to think about. The dream wasn't always an escape. It could be a confrontation. Many believed in soul travel, the idea that your soul left your body at night to wander through emotional terrain. If it encountered an unresolved guilt or a denied desire, the resulting dream could shake you to your bones. Hence the rise of sleep amulets. Little fabric sachets filled with cloves, mint, or even powdered pearl were tucked under pillows or stitched into nightcaps to anchor the spirit and prevent bad journeys. There's even a fringe account of someone sewing a silver coin into their pillowcase to bribe the demons. Honestly, 10 out of 10 for creativity. And don't forget the tea. Not the letters water this time, tonight it's passion flower, linden blossom, or valerian root, S. Teeped long and bitter. You drink it slowly, like a potion, half wondering whether it's calming your nerves or just giving your hand something to do. Then there's the silence. It's not the absence of noise, but the presence of a different kind of quiet. The one that descends after grief has spoken its piece. After the séance is over, the bell unrung, the tea cooled. This is when the real sleep arrives, not always welcome, but undeniable. Like fog through a broken window, like memory settling into the folds of your quilt. Your eyes grow heavy. You remember something about tonight, an old remedy, maybe. A verse read aloud 3 times. A mirror turned inward. A handkerchief placed under the tongue. The Victorians had a trick for everything, and sleep was no exception. And yet, somehow, despite all the contraptions, the tinctures, the superstition, and the science, what finally puts you under is simpler than all of it. A slow breath. A warm blanket. And the faint comfort of knowing that even in a world of gaslight and grief, someone once believed sleep was still a kind of grace. And now, we settle deeper. The room fades, its edges soften into blurred velvet, and the voices of the past retreat like waves slipping away from the shore. You've traveled through drawing rooms and graveyards, through seances and sleepwalking, through warm lettuce tea and beds lined with rosemary. Strange, isn't it? How something as simple as sleep could hold so many stories. Let your breath slow now. Let it pool in your chest, soft and heavy. The air around you carries a gentle hush, like a library after closing, or a street lamp flickering in the fog. You are wrapped in more than just blankets. You are wrapped in the quiet belief that even the strangest nights have a morning on the other side. Whatever dreams find you tonight, whether they carry echoes of old stories or simply the softness of rest, know that they are yours. Your mind, your breath, your drifting boat on this wide sea of sleep. There's nothing more you need to do now. No contraptions to switch off. No potions to sip. Just listen to the silence. It's enough. It always has been. Good night.